My nightmare stepson took my daughter's hard-earned money without permission and used it to buy a PlayStation, so I used his birthday money to pamper my daughter. My husband and I have a relatively good marriage except for one thing, and that would be my entitled stepson, Jake. Jake is a classic entitled teenager who doesn't work, but has been raised to think that the world owes him special treatment. I have never tried to replace his mother, but I have taken care of him by making him school lunches, taking him to basketball practice, things like that. Yet, he seems to just dislike me for no reason. He refuses to speak to me and won't even make conversation with me most of the time, only talking to me when he is asking me for money for various things. In complete honesty, I feel like a free taxi service and an ATM for him. I have never once in my life had him do anything for me, not even anything as little as getting me a glass of water when I was sick. I have talked to his father about this issue, and he usually says something along the lines of, "You're not his mother, don't expect anything," which is kind of contradictory, because he always nags me to take Jake to the movies or give him money whenever he asks for it. Another issue that Jake seems to have is he disliked his stepsister, my daughter Ella, even more than me, and once again, it is for no apparent reason. She is 17 and 2 years older than him, and she honestly acts like a great stepsister, from my point of view. If he needs help with homework, she'll assist him. If he asks her to make him dinner, she will. She's always wanted a little brother and almost sees him as one, but I know the fact he doesn't like her hurts her. He sees her as his personal tutor and chef, and nothing more. I remember she once asked him to try to teach her basketball, as she has been watching the NBA recently, and become interested in it, but he responded by telling her that girls are terrible at sports, and she should go back to the kitchen. I gave out to Jake for this, and his father stepped in, asking if what Jake said was actually wrong. It almost seemed like, over time, the house was getting divided, with Jake being a sort of dictator towards me and Ella, and my husband greatly enabling his actions. I remember the thing that made me realize that I needed to stop allowing Jake to walk all over me, and it was when, during Ella's birthday, Jake did not buy her a single gift, and didn't even come downstairs to cut the cake or partake in any sort of celebration, even though, just a few weeks ago, Ella had gifted him $400 for his 15th birthday. I reflected a lot that night, and realized it was my responsibility to set boundaries with Jake. Well, Jake literally came to me the next day asking for a few $100s. I asked him what it was for, and he said he wanted to buy a gaming console, but didn't want to spend his own money on it and wanted to save. This was when I told him no. He looked at me strangely and asked what I meant by no. I told him I was sick of him being disrespectful to me and Ella, that he had his birthday money and he could go spend it on his gaming console. He went upstairs to complain to my husband, and they then teamed up on me, demanding I give my son the money. My husband couldn't do it because I make more than him. After a few minutes, Ella heard them and came down, and it devolved into me and Ella against Jake and my husband. After a full hour, I finally put my foot down after drastically raising my voice in a manner that even scared Ella. They finally relented, and I thought that was that. A few weeks later, however, I noticed a new gaming console in Jake's room, so I asked him where he got it from. He said it was his birthday money, but that was a lie, as the envelope with the money was right there on his desk, still stuffed with cash. I told him I knew he was lying and asked again, and this time, he said that Ella bought it for him. Ella was at work when he said that, so I waited for her to get home to double check. I had a strong suspicion that he was lying, but I never expected him to stoop so low, to be honest. When I asked Ella, she seemed super confused and told me no. We then went into her room and went through her wallet, where we noticed $500 in cash missing. We instantly confronted Jake about it, and after being pressed enough, he admitted to taking it because Ella has a job anyway. She can make it back in 2 weeks. Ella snapped at him, which is something she has never done before, and called him an entitled, spoiled, ungrateful brat. I spent a while calming Ella down as she was so mad, and when my husband got home, we all had another argument about it, which got us nowhere. Ella went to bed crying, and the next morning, I told her not to go into school because I had a plan. Jake went to school and my husband left for work, and so I showed Ella my plan. I suggested using the birthday money she gave him for a day out for us two, and I saw a sly smile appear on her face. That was the day we went out and got massages, went to a fancy restaurant, did some shopping, and got ice cream to end the day. We're currently on our way home, and my husband has called me non-stop asking me where Jake's money is. Getting back to the house will sure be interesting. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as my phone buzzed again on the dashboard mount. Peter's face flashed on the screen for what had to be the 20th time. Ella glanced at it and rolled her eyes. "You should probably answer before he calls the police," she said, though her tone suggested she was enjoying this way more than she should. I pulled into our neighborhood and finally hit the speaker button. Peter's voice exploded through the car before I could even say hello. "Where the hell is Jake's birthday money? I went to get it from his desk to put it in the bank and the envelope is empty. Did you take it?" I kept my voice steady. "Yes, I took it." The silence on the other end lasted maybe 3 seconds before he erupted. "You what? That's not your money. That's Jake's money. You had no right." "Actually, Peter, Ella gave Jake that money, and since Jake took $500 from her without permission, I'd say we're still $100 short. That's not how this works. You can't just take his money, but he can take hers." I pulled into our driveway and put the car in park. "Interesting double standard. We're not done talking about this," he growled before hanging up. Ella and I sat in the car for a moment, gathering ourselves. Through the living room window, I could see Peter pacing back and forth, his phone still in his hand. "Ready for this?" I asked. She nodded, though I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "I've got your back, Mom." We grabbed our shopping bags and headed inside. Peter was waiting in the entryway, his face red with anger. His eyes immediately finally went to the bags in our hands. You went shopping? With Jake's money? His voice was dangerously low. I set my bags down calmly. We had a nice day. Massages, lunch, some retail therapy. You know, the kind of day Ella deserved for her birthday but didn't get because she spent her money on an ungrateful stepbrother. This is a wrongful taking. No, Peter. Taking things improperly is what Jake did when he snuck into Ella's room and took money from her wallet. This is consequences. He turned to Ella, his expression shifting to something almost pleading. Ella, you can't be okay with this. That was Jake's money. Ella straightened her shoulders. Dad, Jake took from me without permission. He admitted it. He said I could just make it back at work like it was nothing. Like my time and effort mean nothing. He's just a kid. So am I. Ella's voice cracked. I'm 17, not 30, but I work hard for my money, and I still gave him $400 because I wanted him to have a good birthday. And what did I get? He couldn't even come downstairs for my birthday cake. Peter ran his hands through his hair, clearly frustrated. This isn't the way to handle it. You should have come to me. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Come to you? Like when I came to you about Jake telling Ella to get back in the kitchen? You asked if he was wrong. Like when I come to you about him treating me like an ATM. You tell me I'm not his mother and shouldn't expect anything. That's different. How? How is it different? Before he could answer, we heard the front door slam. Jake was home from school. He walked into the tension-filled room, took one look at all of us, and started to head upstairs. Jake, wait, Peter called out. We need to talk. Jake stopped on the third step and turned around, his backpack still on. His eyes landed on the shopping bags. What's all that? Your birthday money bought it, I said simply. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, realization, then fury. You took my money without permission? Interesting choice of words, I said, considering you took Ella's money without permission first. That's different. She has a job. And you have birthday money. Had, I should say. Jake looked at his father desperately. Dad, she took from me without permission. Call the police. Peter hesitated, and in that moment, I saw something shift in Jake's expression. For the first time, his father wasn't immediately taking his side. Jake, Peter said slowly, you did take money from Ella's wallet. So, she can make it back. That's not the point, son. Jake's face turned red. You're taking their side? They're thieves. You took things without permission first, Ella said quietly. $500, Jake. That's over 2 weeks of work for me. I don't care about your stupid job, and I don't care about your stupid gaming console, but here we are, Ella shot back. Jake stomped up the stairs and we heard his bedroom door slam. Peter sank onto the couch, looking older than I'd ever seen him. This family is falling apart, he muttered. I sat down across from him. No, Peter. This family has been broken for a while. We're just finally acknowledging it. What do you want me to do? He's my son. And Ella is your stepdaughter. And I'm your wife. When do we matter as much as Jake does? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Ella picked up her shopping bags. I'm going to my room. Thanks for today, Mom. It was nice to feel valued for once. After she left, Peter and I sat in silence. The weight of everything hung between us like a physical presence. Finally, he spoke. The gaming console needs to be returned. Jake needs to give Ella her money back. I nodded. That's a start. And then what? How do we fix this? I don't know if we can fix it, Peter, but we can start by you acknowledging that you've been enabling Jake's behavior, that you've been treating Ella and me as less important than him. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you stood up for Ella? When was the last time you told Jake he needed to respect me? Again, silence. I'm going to talk to him, Peter said finally, standing up. And say what? That he needs to return the console he bought with money taken without permission? That's the bare minimum, Peter. What about consequences? What about the fact that he's been treating Ella like a servant and me like a walking wallet? What do you want me to do, Julia? Ground him forever? I want you to parent him. I want you to teach him that women aren't here to serve him. I want you to show him that actions have consequences. My voice had risen, and I forced myself to take a breath. Getting emotional wouldn't help anything. Peter headed upstairs, and I heard him knock on Jake's door. Muffled voices carried down, but I couldn't make out the words. I started putting away the few groceries we'd picked up, trying to keep my hands busy. My phone buzzed. A text from Ella. Thank you for today. I love you. I smiled despite everything. At least I'd done something right. About 20 minutes later, Peter came back downstairs looking defeated. He won't open the door, says he's never speaking to any of us again. Of course he won't. He's 15 and just faced his first real consequence. This isn't a joke, Julia. I'm not joking. I'm tired, Peter. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home. I'm tired of watching Ella get hurt over and over. I'm tired of you making excuses for Jake's behavior. What if he really doesn't speak to us again? What if this damages our relationship permanently? What relationship? The one where he only acknowledges my existence when he wants money? The one where he treats Ella like hired help? That relationship? Peter flinched. He doesn't have anyone else. His mother barely sees him. And whose fault is that? Not mine, not Ella's, but we're the ones paying the price for it. So what now? I thought for a moment. Now, Jake returns the gaming console and gives Ella back her money. All of it. He apologizes. A real apology, not some mumbled sorry. And we start family therapy. Therapy? Yes, therapy, because clearly we can't fix this on our own. Peter looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. I'll talk to him again in the morning, when he's had time to cool down. Number, you'll talk to him now. This has gone on long enough. Julia. Peter, I'm done. Either you handle this now, or I'm taking Ella and we're staying at my sister's for a few days. I won't have her feeling unsafe or disrespected in her own home anymore. That got his attention. You'd leave? To protect my daughter? In a heartbeat. He stared at me for a long moment, maybe finally realizing how serious this had become. Then he headed back upstairs. This time, I followed. We stood outside Jake's door, listening listening to the aggressive sounds of his video game bleeding through. Peter knocked again, harder this time. Jake, open up. We need to talk. Go away. Jake's voice was muffled, but the anger came through clearly. Open this door right now, or I'm taking the gaming console. There was a pause, then the sound of footsteps. The door cracked open just enough for Jake to glare at us. His eyes were red-rimmed, whether from crying or rage, I couldn't tell. What? He spat. We need to discuss what happened with Ella's money, Peter said, his voice firmer than I'd heard it in years. I already told you. She makes money at her stupid job. It's not a big deal. I stepped forward. $500 isn't a big deal. That's 33 hours of work for her. 33 hours of dealing with difficult customers, standing on her feet, missing time with friends. Jake rolled his eyes. Whatever. She chose to work. And you chose to take things without permission. I shot back. Peter held up a hand. Jake, you need to return the gaming console. Tomorrow we're taking it back to the store. Jake's face went from red to purple. No, it's mine. I bought it. With money taken without permission, Peter said quietly. You can't make me. Actually, I can. And I will. Jake slammed the door in our faces. We heard things being thrown around inside, and I grabbed Peter's arm when he reached for the doorknob. Let him have his tantrum, I said. He needs to process this. We went back downstairs, and I could see the weight of the situation settling on Peter's shoulders. He slumped into his chair, rubbing his temples. I've really screwed this up, haven't I? He said quietly. I sat down across from him. We both have, in different ways. I should have put my foot down sooner. You should have seen what was happening. After the divorce, I felt so guilty. His mother barely calls, never visits. I wanted to make it up to him somehow, by letting him become a monster. Peter flinched at the word, but didn't argue. What if he hates me forever? He's 15. He'll get over it. But if we don't fix this now, Ella will hate both of us forever, and she'd have every right to. We sat in silence for a while, the house feeling heavier than it ever had. Eventually, I heard Ella's door open and her soft footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Is it safe to come down? She asked, only half joking. Of course, sweetheart, I said, patting the couch beside me. She sat down, tucking her legs under her. I heard yelling. Jake's not happy about returning the console, Peter said. Ella nodded slowly. I didn't want it to come to this. I worked so hard for my money, and I gave him so much for his birthday because I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to like me. My heart broke a little. Oh, honey, you can't buy someone's affection. I know. I just thought maybe if I was nice enough, generous enough, helpful enough. She trailed off, wiping at her eyes. Peter moved to sit on her other side. Ella, I owe you an apology. I've let Jake treat you badly, and I've made excuses for it. That stops now. She looked at him skeptically. Really? Really? Tomorrow, he returns the console and pays you back every penny. And we're all going to family counseling. Even Jake? Especially Jake. The next morning came too quickly. I woke to the sound of drawers slamming upstairs. Jake was awake and apparently still furious. I made coffee and started breakfast, trying to maintain some normalcy. Peter came down first, looking like he hadn't slept. I checked his room. The console is there. Good. What time does the store open? 10. Ella appeared next, dressed for work, but looking tired. I don't have to be at work until noon. Can I come with you to return it? I hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea, honey. Jake's going to be difficult enough without. I want to be there, she said firmly. I need to see this through. Peter and I exchanged glances. He nodded. Okay, but if things get too heated, you leave. Deal? Deal. Jake finally came downstairs at 9:30, after Peter threatened to donate all his electronics to charity. He looked like a storm cloud, dark and ready to burst. He grabbed a piece of toast and tried to head back upstairs. Sit, Peter commanded. Jake froze, clearly surprised by the authority in his father's voice. He sat at the far end of the table, as far from the rest of us as possible. We're leaving in 20 minutes, Peter said. Go get the console and all the accessories. Put them back in the box. This is taking things without permission, Jake muttered. No, I said calmly. This is returning goods taken without permission. I hate you, he said, looking directly at me. That's fine. You still need to get the console. He stormed upstairs, and we heard more banging around. Ella reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. The drive to the store was silent, except for Jake's heavy breathing from the back seat. He'd wedged himself against the door, as far from Ella as possible. The console box sat between them like a barrier. At the store, Jake refused to get out of the car at first. Peter had to physically escort him inside while Ella and I followed. The return desk clerk, a young woman who couldn't have been much older than Ella, looked uncomfortable as Peter explained the situation. I need to return this. It was purchased with money taken without permission. Jake's face burned red. Dad, it's the truth, Peter said simply. The clerk processed the return, and I watched Jake deflate as she handed over the cash. $500 exactly. Peter took the money and handed it directly to Ella. This is yours. Jake made a sound like a wounded animal. This is so unfair. No, Ella said quietly. What's unfair is taking things from someone who's only ever been kind to you without permission. You're not my real sister, Jake exploded. You're nothing to me. Just some girl my dad married into the family. The words hung in the air like poison. I saw Ella's face crumble, and something inside me snapped. That's enough, I said, my voice deadly calm. Ella, Peter, go wait in the car. Julia, Peter started. Now. They left, Ella wiping tears from her face. I turned to Jake, who suddenly looked less sure of himself. You listen to me very carefully, I said, keeping my voice low so the other customers wouldn't hear. That girl you just hurt, she's loved you like a brother from day one. She's helped you with homework, made you meals, given you money, tried to include you in her life, and you've treated her like garbage. I didn't ask for her to. No, you didn't ask. You demanded. You expected. You took. And when she had nothing left to give, you took from her without permission. Jake's eyes filled with tears. hours, but I wasn't done. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to be understanding. I've made excuses for you because I know your mom isn't around much, but I'm done. You want to hate me? Fine, but you will respect Ella, or you'll find out what it's really like when I stop caring. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you how things are going to be. You can be part of this family, or you can be a miserable, lonely kid who drives everyone away. Your choice. I left him standing there and walked to the car. The ride home was silent except for Ella's quiet sniffles. When we got back, Jake went straight to his room and slammed the door. Peter found me in the kitchen later, stress cleaning the already spotless counters. What did you say to him? He asked. The truth. He nodded slowly. I called that therapist my coworker recommended. She has an opening Thursday evening. Family session. All of us? All of us. The days leading up to Thursday were tense. Jake refused to speak to anyone, taking his meals in his room. Ella threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts. Peter and I moved around each other carefully, like we were both made of glass. Wednesday night, I heard a soft knock on our bedroom door. Peter was in the shower, so I answered it. Jake stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. What is it, Jake? Is Ella home? She's in her room. Why? He shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to apologize. I studied him carefully. Do you mean it? Or is this because your dad is making you? Dad doesn't know I'm here, he said quietly. I stepped aside. Her room's open. I watched him walk down the hall and knock softly on Ella's door. I couldn't hear their conversation, but about 15 minutes later, I heard Ella laugh. Actually laugh. When Jake came back out, his eyes were red, but he looked lighter somehow. Thursday evening arrived with all the weight of a storm system. The therapist's office was warm and inviting, but we all sat like we were in a principal's office. Dr. Martinez was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. So, she began, after we'd all introduced ourselves, tell me why you're here. Everyone looked at everyone else. Finally, I spoke. Our family is broken, and we need help fixing it. That's honest, Doctor, Martinez said. Who wants to elaborate? To my surprise, Jake raised his hand slightly. I took money from my stepsister without permission, and I've been pretty awful to everyone. Dr. Martinez nodded encouragingly. What made you realize that? Jake glanced at me, then at Ella. Someone told me the truth, and I actually listened. The session was hard, brutal even. We talked about the divorce, about Jake's mom, about my role as stepmother, about Peter's guilt-driven enabling. Ella cried when she talked about how hard she'd tried to make Jake like her. Peter broke down when he admitted he'd failed both kids by picking sides. I see a family that wants to heal, Dr. Martinez said as our time ran out. But it's going to take work, real work. Are you all willing to do that? We all nodded. Good. I want to see you all next week. In the meantime, I have homework for you. She gave us each assignments. Jake had to do one kind thing for each family member each day, without being asked and without expecting anything in return. Ella had to practice setting boundaries and saying no. Peter had to spend individual time with each kid, actually listening to them. And I had to step back and let Peter parent Jake without intervening. The drive home was quiet but different, less tense, more thoughtful. That night, as I was making dinner, Jake appeared in the kitchen. Need help? He asked awkwardly. I nearly dropped the spatula. Sure. Can you set the table? He nodded and got to work. As he placed the plates, he said quietly, I'm sorry for everything. I know, I said. I'm sorry too, for taking so long to stand up for what was right. Julia? He said, using my name for maybe the second time ever. Yeah? Thanks, for caring enough to get mad. I smiled. That's what family does. Ella came home from work just as we were sitting down to dinner, all four of us at the same table for the first time in months. She looked surprised, but pleased. I saved you a plate, Jake said, jumping up to get it from the kitchen. Ella looked at me in shock. I shrugged, trying not to smile too widely. Dinner conversation was stilted at first, but gradually, we found a rhythm. Jake asked Ella about work. Peter told a funny story about a client. I mentioned a movie I wanted to see, and Jake actually suggested we all go together. After dinner, Jake cleared the table without being asked. Ella offered to help him with his math homework. Peter and I did the dishes together, working in comfortable synchronization. This feels different, Peter said quietly. It's just one day, I reminded him. We have a long way to go. I know, but it's a start, right? I smiled. It's a start. Later that evening, I found Ella in her room, counting her returned money. You okay? I asked, sitting on her bed. Yeah, Jake apologized. Like, really apologized. He said he was jealous. Jealous? Of me having you. He said his mom never fights for him the way you fought for me. My throat tightened. Oh, I told him you'd fight for him too, if he'd let you. What did he say? He said he was starting to figure that out. I hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you, for standing up for yourself, for being willing to forgive. I learned from the best, she said into my shoulder. The next few days were a careful dance of trying and failing and trying again. Jake forgot his kindness homework one day and had to do double the next. Ella luchó con decir no cuando Jake le pidió que le hiciera un sándwich, pero ella logró sugerirle que se lo hiciera él mismo, y luego le ofreció enseñarle cómo hacer uno realmente bueno. Peter took Jake to basketball practice and actually stayed to watch instead of just dropping him off. He took Ella to a bookstore and let her talk his ear off about her favorite series. I found stepping back the hardest. Every instinct wanted to intervene when I heard Jake getting snippy, or Peter being too soft, but I bit my tongue and let them work it out. The second therapy session was easier. We talked about communication styles and family roles. Dr. Martinez introduced the concept of chosen family, how stepfamilies could be just as strong as biological ones, sometimes stronger because they were built on choice rather than obligation. Jake, she said during one exercise, tell me one thing you appreciate about each family member. Jake squirmed but answered, Dad always shows up for my games. Julia makes really good lasagna and she never gave up on trying to include me, even when I was awful. And Ella, ... He paused, looking at his stepsister. Ella never told Dad about the worst stuff I said to her. She protected me even when I didn't deserve it. Ella wiped her eyes. You're my brother. That's what siblings do. I haven't been a very good brother, Jake admitted. So be better, Ella said simply. Starting now. 3 weeks into therapy, we had our first major test. Jake's mother called. Her yearly check-in, Peter called it bitterly. Jake was excited, telling her about school, basketball, everything except the family therapy and the recent drama. When she promised to visit soon, his whole face lit up. She never showed. Jake waited by the window all Saturday. By evening, he was in tears. Not angry tears, heartbroken ones, the kind that made him look like the lost little boy he really was under all that attitude. Peter held him while he sobbed. Ella made his favorite cookies, and I did what I'd always done. I showed up. I sat with them in the living room, not saying anything, just being present. Why doesn't she want me? Jake asked through his tears. I don't know, buddy, Peter said honestly, but it's not about you. It's about her and her own issues. We want you, Ella said quietly. All of us. Jake looked at me uncertainly. I nodded. Every difficult, stubborn, occasionally sweet inch of you. He almost smiled. I'm not sweet. You helped Mrs. Chen with her groceries yesterday, I pointed out. That was sweet. You saw that? I see more than you think. That night, Jake ate dinner with us without being asked. He even laughed at one of Peter's terrible dad jokes. It wasn't perfect. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. The next therapy session, Dr. Martinez smiled when she saw us. You all look different, lighter. We had a rough weekend, Peter explained about Jake's mother, but we got through it together, Jake added quietly. That's what families do, Dr. Martinez said. They show up for each other. We spent that session talking about reliability and trust, how it was built slowly and destroyed quickly, how Jake's mother's absence had taught him not to trust women, not to believe they'd stay, how that had poisoned his relationship with me and Ella from the start. But they stayed, Jake said suddenly. Even when I was horrible, they stayed. How does that feel? Dr. Martinez asked. Scary, he admitted, but also good. We were given new homework. This time we had to plan a family activity together, something everyone would enjoy. The catch? Jake and Ella had to plan it together. I watched them at the kitchen table that evening, heads bent over Ella's laptop, debating options. They settled on a basketball game. The local team Ella had started following was playing that weekend. But you have to teach me about the players, Ella negotiated, so I know who to cheer for. Deal, Jake agreed, but you have to wear the team colors. Deal. The game was loud and chaotic and perfect. Jake explained plays to Ella with patience I didn't know he possessed. Ella cheered enthusiastically, making Jake laugh with her creative trash talk. Peter bought everyone overpriced nachos and sodas. I took pictures, capturing moments I'd thought we'd never have. When the home team won, Jake high-fived Ella so hard she yelped. Then he caught himself and apologized, but she just laughed and hit him back just as hard. That's my brother, she told the confused woman next to us. He's teaching me about basketball. Jake's ears turned red, but he smiled. The ride home from the game was different than any car ride we'd had as a family. Jake and Ella were actually talking, debating whether the referee made the right call in the third quarter. Peter kept glancing in the rearview mirror with this expression I hadn't seen in years. Hope. When we got home, Jake headed straight for the kitchen and started making himself a sandwich. Then he paused and looked at Ella. Want one? She blinked in surprise. Sure, thanks. I watched from the doorway as he carefully made 2 sandwiches, even remembering that Ella didn't like mustard. It was such a small thing, but it felt monumental. The next few weeks continued with baby steps forward and occasional stumbles back. Jake started doing his homework at the kitchen table instead of hiding in his room. Ella aprendió a decir no cuando estaba demasiado cansada para ayudar. Peter and I presented a united front when making decisions. Dr. Martinez called it relearning how to be a family. Then came the day everything almost fell apart again. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd gotten home early from work and was sorting mail when I heard shouting from upstairs. Jake's voice, high and angry, followed by a crash. I took the stairs 2 at a time and found Jake in his room, his face red and twisted with rage. His laptop was on the floor. The screen cracked. Ella stood in the doorway looking shaken. What happened? I asked. Jake pointed at Ella with a shaking finger. She told Dad I was failing math. She promised she wouldn't tell. Ella's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to. He asked how tutoring was going and it just came out. You're such a snitch, Jake yelled. I trusted you. Peter appeared behind me, having heard the commotion from his home office. What's going on? Your son is failing math and has been lying about it, I said, piecing things together, and apparently convinced Ella to cover for him. Peter's face darkened. Jake, is this true? Jake's anger crumbled into something closer to panic. I was going to fix it. I just needed more time. How long have you been failing? Peter asked. Jake looked at the floor. Since the beginning of the semester. 3 months? Peter's voice rose. You've been lying for 3 months? I didn't want to disappoint you, Jake burst out. You already think I'm a screw-up because of the incident with the money. I don't think you're a screw-up, Peter said, his voice softening. But lying makes everything worse. You know that. Jake slumped onto his bed. My teacher says I need a C on the final or I'll have to repeat the class. When's the final? I asked. Next week. Ella stepped forward hesitantly. I can help. I mean, if you want. I aced that class last year. Jake looked up at her, his expression unreadable. Why would you help me? I just screamed at you. Because that's what family does, Ella said simply. Even when they're mad at each other. Something shifted in Jake's face. He nodded slowly. Okay, yeah, please. The next week was intense. Ella and Jake spent hours at the kitchen table, going over equations and practice problems. Peter and I took turns bringing them snacks and encouragement. Even when Jake got frustrated and snapped at Ella, she stayed patient. You're not stupid. I heard her tell him one evening. You just learn differently. Here, let me show you another way. The night before the final, Jake was a nervous wreck. He couldn't eat dinner, just pushed food around his plate. What if I fail anyway? He asked quietly. What if all this work was for nothing? Then we'll figure it out together, Peter said firmly. But you're not going to fail. You've worked too hard. Ella's been working hard too, Jake said, glancing at his stepsister. I haven't even thanked her. You just did, Ella smiled. The day of the test, I drove Jake to school early. He sat in the passenger seat, frantically reviewing his notes. Jake, I said gently, you've got this. He looked at me, really looked at me, for maybe the first time. Thanks, Julia, for everything. Always, I said, meaning it. That afternoon, we all waited anxiously for Jake to come home. When he walked through the door, his face was unreadable. Well, Peter asked. Jake held up his test paper. B-. Ella let out a whoop and tackled him in a hug. He hugged her back, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around. Peter and I exchanged glances, both of us getting a little misty-eyed. We need to celebrate, I announced. Pizza tonight. Jake's choice of toppings. Even pineapple? Jake asked with a grin. Even pineapple, I confirmed, despite my personal feelings about fruit on pizza. That night at dinner, Jake cleared his throat. I have something to say. We all looked at him expectantly. I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I realized I never really apologized. Not properly. He looked at me first. Julia, I'm sorry for treating you like you didn't matter. You've done more for me than I deserved, and I was too stupid to see it. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He turned to Ella. And Ella, I'm sorry for being the worst brother ever. You tried so hard to be my friend and I threw it in your face. The money thing was bad, but the way I treated you every day was worse. Ella wiped her eyes. It's okay. We're good now. And Dad, Jake looked at Peter. I'm sorry for playing you against them, for making you choose sides. That wasn't fair. Peter nodded, too emotional to speak. I know sorry doesn't fix everything, Jake continued, but I want to do better. I am doing better. And I wanted you all to know that I see it now. We're a family. A real family. Yes, we are, I said softly. The next therapy session, Dr. Martinez was visibly pleased with our progress. You've all come so far in just 2 months. How does it feel? Different, Jake said. Good different. Like, I actually want to come home after school now. I don't feel like I'm walking on eggshells anymore, Ella added. I feel like I actually know my son, Peter said. Both my kids. And you, Julia? Dr. Martinez asked. I thought for a moment. I feel like I finally have the family I always wanted. Not perfect, but real. No family is perfect, Dr. Martinez said. But a family that chooses to work together, to grow together, that's something special. As we were leaving, Jake hung back. Dr. Martinez, do you think, could I maybe have some individual sessions too? There's stuff about my mom I think I need to work through. She smiled. I think that's a very mature decision, Jake. We can absolutely arrange that. In the car, Peter reached over and took my hand. He's going to be okay, isn't he? They both are, I said, glancing in the mirror at Jake and Ella in the back seat, sharing earbuds and arguing good-naturedly about music. The real test came a month later. Jake's birthday was approaching, and I found Ella in her room, counting money. What are you doing? I asked, though I had a feeling I knew. Jake's birthday is next week, she said. I want to get him something nice. Ella, you don't have to. I know, she interrupted, but I want to. It's different now. How much are you thinking? She grinned. $50. I'm not crazy, but I saw this basketball jersey he's been wanting. On Jake's birthday, he came downstairs to find all of us in the kitchen with a homemade breakfast spread. His eyes widened. Is this for me? Happy birthday, kiddo, Peter said, ruffling his hair. Jake sat down, looking overwhelmed. You guys didn't have to do all this. We wanted to, I said, setting down a plate of his favorite chocolate chip pancakes. After breakfast, Ella handed him a wrapped box. This is from me. Jake opened it carefully, pulling out the jersey. His face lit up. Ella, this is... How did you know? I pay attention, she said with a shrug. He hugged her tightly. Thank you. Really, there's more, Peter said, producing an envelope. This is from Julia and me. Jake opened it to find tickets to a basketball camp he'd been talking about for months. His jaw dropped. Are you serious? Completely serious, I confirmed. You've been working so hard. You deserve this. Jake stood up and hugged Peter, then turned to me. For a moment, he hesitated, then pulled me into a fierce hug. Thank you, Mom, he whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. I held him tighter, blinking back tears. You're welcome, sweetheart. Later that evening, I found Jake in his room, carefully hanging up his new jersey. Good birthday? I asked from the doorway. The best, he said, then paused. Julia? I mean what I said earlier, the mom thing, if that's okay. It's more than okay, I said. It's perfect. He smiled, that genuine smile I'd been seeing more and more lately. Cool. Oh, and Ella and I are going to shoot hoops tomorrow. Wanna come? She's actually getting pretty good. I'd love to. As I headed back downstairs, I passed Ella's room. She was video chatting with friends, laughing about something. She caught my eye and waved, mouthing love you, before turning back to her conversation. Downstairs, Peter was in his office, but the door was open. Another small change that meant everything. He looked up as I passed. Kids okay? Kids are great, I said. We're all great. And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. We weren't perfect. Jake still had his moments of teenage attitude. Ella still struggled with setting boundaries sometimes. Peter and I still had to work on presenting a united front, but we were trying, all of us, every single day. The house that had once felt divided now felt whole. The boy who'd taken from his stepsister without permission now helped her with her resume for college applications. The girl who'd been treated like a servant now felt confident enough to say no when she needed to. The husband who'd enabled bad behavior now stood firm when it mattered. And me? I'd finally found my place in this messy, complicated, beautiful family. As I settled onto the couch with a cup of tea, I heard Jake and Ella upstairs, arguing about something, but it was different now. There was laughter mixed in with the bickering, the sound of siblings who actually liked each other. Peter came out of his office and sat beside me. Listen to them, he said softly. 6 months ago, I never thought we'd get here. We almost didn't, I reminded him. But we did. That's what matters. He was right. We'd taken the long way around, through therapy sessions and hard conversations and more than a few tears. But we'd made it. We were a family, not by default, but by choice. And that made all the difference.